Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. It has been over 2 weeks since I posted my last firearms video. Just kidding with you, YouTube. It's FS Physicus, and it's good to be back talking to you folks again. I am actually sorry that I haven't been able to keep up with my, intended 2-week release cycle, but life happens when you're not expecting it to. So, today I wanted to talk to you about the ATF's proposed ban on the M855 bullet/round. Okay, and I know you're all probably thinking, hey, that's old news. Well, yes and no. There's a lot of misinformation out there about M855 and its uses in handguns and rifles and all kinds of things. So I want to go over that with you. And of course, if you've been paying attention, even though the ATF tabled or withdrew the proposed ban, they didn't come out and say, oh, we see, this doesn't make any sense and we're never going to attempt it again. That's not what they said. So we're still in danger here. We're at like yellow alert as far as this goes, and we need to stay vigilant and watch this. I'm sure you guys are aware that we've had a couple of, at least one, if not several, idiotic Democratic lawmakers, one I believe especially from the state of New York here, who is trying to ban all kinds of rifle ammunition, all kinds of centerfire rifle ammunition, saying it's all armor piercing. Well, depends on what you define as armor, and we'll talk a little bit about that. I just want to make one note out there to all you hunters who have thought your deer rifle was protected and the anti-gunners would never come for your deer gun. They're trying to ban wide ranges of centerfire ammunition. You should hear that as they're trying to ban your hunting ammunition. So if you haven't gotten up and stood up for gun rights, you better start doing it, or they will come and take that from you. So now back to the M855 issue. Okay, first of all, M855 was developed quite some time ago, was developed for use in rifles like an AR-15. Okay, that's primarily what it's for. One of the things that I'll tell you about it is that by the ATF's own guidelines, M855 is not armor piercing. That may surprise you. Hey, everybody says that M855 is armor piercing. It's called a steel penetrator round. Well, the ATF defines armor piercing projectiles as those with a core in the center of the thing, the center part of the projectile, that's made out of a specific list of materials. I don't remember all of them, but tungsten alloy, steel, I believe copper, and beryllium. The beryllium sphere, of course. Those materials are all hard and much harder than lead. And therefore, to pierce armor, you need a hard material. You can't shoot lead at it. Lead is going to go splat and deform like clay. That's not what you need with an armor piercing round. You need a material that's much harder. So the first problem with the M855 ban is that if you were to look at a cross section of the bullet, and there are a lot of videos and a lot of diagrams you can find out on the web where people have nicely sliced M855 bullets in half. I don't happen to have any M855, and so what I want you to do is imagine you're above a lake and you're looking down on a rowboat, pointing at the front, bows out, maybe starts to curve back in, flat at the back. That's what the projectile looks like. If you cut that in half, you'll see two distinct pieces inside of it. One is steel and one is lead. Okay, so the core of M855 is composed of a mixture, although it's not mixed, but composed of steel and lead. Therefore, the core is not 100% steel. It's not armor piercing by the ATF's definition. They should have dropped it right there, but they didn't. They now said, well, when M855 was designed and first began to manufacture, it was intended for use in a rifle. A rifle is a large firearm that cannot be easily concealed. You can't surprise a cop with this and shoot them, through their Kevlar vest. Okay. Now, there are AR-type handguns. And these are handguns, and they can be concealed, and, therefore this round is now a danger to law enforcement. Well, bull feces. Okay, that's a blatant lie. Let's talk a little bit about this. Okay, granted the AR-15 is a large firearm. You're not going to be concealing this on your person. If you're going to use one of these in criminal activity against law enforcement officers, they're going to see it coming. You know, surprise in tactical situations is a big deal. Okay, if you're carrying one of these, you're really not going to surprise anybody. At least not that kind of surprise. They'd be looking at you like, holy, that guy's got a rifle, you know, okay? So let's talk about handguns then. What is a handgun? Well, this is the Beretta M9. You may recognize this or its very close sibling, the 92 FS from Die Hard, Bruce Willis, you know, John McClane. Mel Gibson's character in Lethal Weapon, you know, Murtaugh used these. Okay, this is the current military sidearm of the U.S. military for most of the branches of service. This is the one that they're talking about replacing. We're not going to go into that argument right now. This is another handgun. This is a 1911, happens to be specifically a Remington R1 enhanced in stainless steel. This style firearm, with very few modifications, is what our troops used in World War I and World War II. Now, as you can see, this is a much smaller firearm than the AR-15. It is certainly reasonable to expect that you could conceal this on your person and surprise a law enforcement officer with it. Well, he wasn't expecting it. Okay. However, those of us who are firearms enthusiasts all would agree that even these smaller handguns, pistols, are too large for most people to effectively carry concealed and hide on their person. Well then, what do people, especially criminals, perhaps carry concealed on their person where they might use it against a police officer? Well, we're talking something more like this. This is a Ruger LC380. It is the exact same size and shape as the Ruger LC9, which shoots a 9mm round, just like the Beretta M9. Okay? You can see that the Ruger is much shorter, much thinner. I just had it stuck in my back pocket, so easily concealable. Now, if this firearm were able to chamber armor-piercing ammunition, I can see that it would pose a threat to police officers. I'm not a fan of very many restrictions on our Second Amendment rights. However, I don't personally disagree with this particular law. You know, for me as a civilian, I want to use firearms to shoot at targets or potentially for self-defense. Now, an armor-piercing round that's going to go through armor plating is certainly going to go clean through the human body. And I know it may sound disturbing, but it's actually more survivable if you had a very hard projectile that poked a clean hole, a 1/4-inch hole through you, than to have a projectile that, say, made a 1/4-inch hole when it went in and mushroomed and became, you know, a 1/2-inch hole. Either, you know, maybe it wouldn't exit, you know. That's going to destroy more tissue and, you know, organs and things of that nature. So, the reality is although it sounds mean and nasty, in some way wounds from armor-piercing ammunition are more survivable than those from good quality self-defense ammunition. As a matter of fact, you guys may not know this, you know, those of you who are gun enthusiasts probably do, but M855 was withdrawn for use in actual combat because it was deemed ineffective. What? Armor-piercing ammo is ineffective? Yeah. You know, there's a great story I read about one of our veterans who shot an insurgent, so I assume we're talking Afghanistan or Iraq, 3 times in the lower abdomen. The 4th shot removed a testicle. This guy still got up, and our veteran had to go hand-to-hand with him to take him down. The guy still survived his wounds and is out walking around today, presumably. Okay, it didn't stop this guy. 4 shots. And let me tell you, 4 shots with a .45 with good hollow point ammunition is going to put people down, probably. I mean, you might get that meth junkie who, you know, is never going to stop. So, you know, is armor-piercing ammunition really worse than a good quality, you know, defensive hollow point? It may not be. It may be less dangerous. It sounds more dangerous because you're thinking armor piercing, it can blow up tanks. You know, what can it do to people? Well, in some ways, the armor piercing round is actually less damaging to the human body. Obviously, if you get a lucky shot and hit somebody's jugular or, you know, aorta or something like that, you know, there are places you're going to hit, you know, people will bleed out, whatever, and death will be very quick. But in general, it's better for the human body to be pierced by a nice clean hole than to be, you know, decimated by a flattening projectile that's entered the body. Now, however, the whole point here was about pistols. Well, okay, the ATF, the way they're wording things, saying there's now AR-type handguns that can be concealed and pose a threat to police officers. They're trying to get you to believe that pistols or handguns like this are made that chamber .556 ammunition and use the M855 bullet. That is a blatant lie. 100% false. No such animal exists. There are AR pistols. In fact, I'm going to show you one now. But they are nothing like even this kind of a pistol. This is an AR pistol that I'm working on building. This one actually does not fire .556 ammunition. This one is going to be chambered in a different round called 300 Blackout. It actually helps my case a little bit because of the nature of 300 Blackout, it's effective with even a shorter barrel than you would want to use with .556 ammunition. Okay, I mean, you can use a barrel as short as you want as long as you can get the gas system to work and the gun to cycle effectively. The shorter the barrel, the more challenging that is. So there is a practical limit to barrel length. Also, you notice this tube sticking out here behind the pistol grip. This is not a shoulder stock, okay? You might think, oh, it has a shoulder stock. No, if it has a shoulder stock, it's a rifle. This is the buffer tube. Well, what's the buffer? It's a piece of metal that sits inside this, and when the gun fires, there's a long piece of metal, kind of cylindrical, called the bolt. When the gun fires, that moves backward. It presses against the buffer, which has a big spring in here, and that buffer and the spring compresses and slows the bolt down, and then slams it forward to grab the next round out of the magazine and chamber it. Okay. It helps to reduce recoil, and it also is the mechanism by which it forces the bolt forward to pick up another round out of the magazine. Probably was not going to feel real good if you place this up against your shoulder and fire it. Plus, to be honest, you're really too close. You don't want something that close. So this is not a shoulder stock. Since it's not a stock, it's not a rifle. If it's not a rifle, the logic goes it must be a pistol or a handgun. Okay, I'm with you. We call them AR pistols. However, I'm beginning to think that maybe we need a new term. Because this type of firearm really is not very similar to this, and yet they're both called pistols. Okay? I'm considering maybe stockless rifle. You know, we need to come up with a term to talk about this type of firearm and not just lump it in with pistols, because that's certainly not the same as this. Okay, not by any stretch of the imagination. So, the ATF, the other way that they can ban ammunition is if it's armor piercing and is intended for use in a handgun. Well, is M855 intended for use in a firearm like this? Well, if I had a different barrel on it, could be. Is this a handgun? Maybe technically. Is it in the spirit of the law an easily concealable handgun that could be used to surprise a law enforcement officer? No. I think we can all agree that this firearm, which is, I believe, 24 or 25 inches long, is too large to comfortably conceal. If you're carrying this in criminal activity, you're not going to be surprising anybody. Okay? So, now I've told you that M855 fails a letter of the law test because the core of the bullet is not made by, solely out of steel or any other of the listed materials. It's a combination of steel and lead. And I've shown you that it violates the spirit of the law because it's not fired from an easily concealable pistol like this. That's what the ATF would like you to believe. But it is fired from a firearm like this, okay, which is called an AR pistol simply because it does not have a shoulder stock. However, This is still a very large firearm. It's not easily concealable, and you're not going to surprise somebody with this, you know, get the draw on them. They're going to know you have this on you if you have it with you. So, thereby I've shown two major ways in which the ATF should permanently stop trying to ban M855. Okay? It isn't fired from easily concealable pistols. The core of the bullet isn't composed solely of steel. Based on those two things, the ATF really needs to not just withdraw temporarily, but completely abandon any type of ban on M855. The new director of the ATF basically bold-faced lied to Congress when he said this round poses a threat to law enforcement officers. Now, you may not believe me. You know, to you guys, I'm just a guy in my basement making gun videos. Who you should be looking at is the Fraternal Order of Police, who have stood up and said, this round, this type of firearm does not pose a threat to our law enforcement officers. This is a solution looking for a problem. You know, if you can't believe the guys who are out there putting their lives on the line every day, facing things like this, or this, but not this, who can you believe? Anyway, I just leave you to think about those points. Thanks for looking in on me.